Hope you're doing all right. Let's jump right in. I wanted to bring to attention anybody who's kind of new to the channel or for whatever reason just doesn't know. I actually have another YouTube channel. It's called the Interstice Podcast, and it's where I do my podcast. It's also available on Spotify and wherever else you might expect to find it. But if you like the long format thing where you just want to put something on in the background, I have that available for you as well. And I figure the best way for people to know is to tell them. But for today, that is not really the topic of this video. These are questions that once I've answered them now, I will never answer them again. And I chose, what do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I feel like I can hit 90% of the emails that I receive in regards to coming over to teach in Japan, and with my renewed focus on let's bring in the next generation of teachers and get them equipped with the sort of most pertinent thing that they might want to know. Let's go ahead with that. So let's maybe in order of how often I receive them. I've made probably 3 or 4 videos to this effect now for this first question, keeping you in suspense. But it always bears repeating because it's a question that people don't find that video. They find a more recent one, and when they look at my channel, they have to go back so far. So the first one is, this is number 1. Never ask me this question again. What is the best company to come over and start teaching for when you come to Japan? And the question, or I should say the answer, is and always will be that this is it's a false flag. You needn't concern yourself with this. So basically, that is to say that these first companies that you come over and teach with, they don't matter. They are basically there to get you a foot in the door. And if you were looking at any sort of position where you actually cared about teaching at this particular place over this particular place, it would come afterwards, because all of those better positions are ones that you have to get after you first arrived. So you get your foot in the door. You do not care whether it's Borderlink or Heart or Interac or Altia or whatever else, or Peppy Kids Club. It just doesn't matter, because ultimately it's irrelevant when my other advice that kind of connects to this is that you should, if you're interested to stay beyond a year, be looking for somewhere within your first 6 months. All of those places that I just named, unless you're an absolute glutton for punishment and overstaying your welcome, they're the rookie mills, and they have hard glass ceilings. So their whole business model is designed around that you would get in and they expect you to go away. So if you think you're going to work for them for a long period of time, it's a mistake. And I made that mistake because I was figuring this stuff out for myself and didn't realize what a hard stop you had above you. I spent 3 years at Interact where you should not. I mean, if you love the schools that you're in, then perhaps in that case. I'm not saying there aren't certain, what would you call these, sort of like exceptional cases where you may want to. Like, I really liked the schools that I worked at, so that was just sort of serendipitous that I was making the mistake of continuing with them anyways, thinking it might become something else, but not usually the case. You get in, you get your working visa, you're in the country now, and then you can start to look for better things. And I highly recommend that you look for something, whether it's a private school or a board of education, or you start looking at what you might do in terms of improving your education if you don't already have it, to move into a university. So there's that one. What is the best company? Irrelevant. No best company. Next one that we'll go into. Can I teach without a degree? So you can only teach in the Japanese public school system if you have a degree. So that excludes you immediately if you don't have a degree from getting into any one of these. A lot of these ones I just mentioned that are dispatch companies that work with public schools. Private schools, it's a bit of a different question, but they still like usually for you to have a degree, although you may in a hard workaround be able to get in. And this might sound a little bit crazy, but if you're looking to kind of swing for the fences, you could come over and potentially not have a job yet, but you come over on like a working holiday visa or just a holiday visa, and then apply from within the country, and you might get a job teaching, or you might get something else, and it's just enough again to get you situated. I know of one individual who did that, and he's doing very well now. Really, really cool guy. His name's Ty. He's gone into cinematography. He's always sending me great stuff. Okay, so next that we're going to go into was how much money do I need to bring? And how does that relate to kind of the whole year or the first year that I'll be here? So they generally recommend that you bring about $5,000. I think you could get away with three, but I don't think you'd really want to go lower than that for your own comfort. Another thing to bear in mind about how your money will stretch and shrink when you're first arriving is to consider that in your first year you have no like a history of income in the country, and so everything is super low. All of your taxes, your taxes are low because to the system that you've now entered, you never made any money. So for the first year you have that extra wiggle room because you're getting basically all of your paychecks back, and in terms of paying into the pension plan, you're not having to make some sort of drastic payment into that as well. So I would say, yeah, 5 is pretty accurate, but I think you could get down towards 3 and you wouldn't actually have to fear that that was some, like inadequate amount for you being here. Next one that I had, cost of living. So likeliness is that you're going to end up in something like a Leo Palace. That's what I ended up in. Still to date my most popular video, much to my shame. But hey, I'm also grateful just that it did well. So Leo Palaces are going to cost you somewhere around like $650 in rent. Then you're going to have, if you get a phone, I recommend a SIM plan if you can do that. If you get an unlocked phone and you just put a SIM in it in Japan, you'll save tons of money. Get a fully equipped plan, 20 gigs of data, probably cost you about $30 a month. Utilities are sort of standard issue kind of stuff. You're going to look at between like $30 and $40. So with the salary that you start with which if it hasn't gone down too much from when I started, which I think it may have a little, if you're making around 250,000 yen per month to 200,000 yen per month, you'll be okay. And those are sort of like the base level costs of amenities and your phone, and little tip in there about what you can do for your phone. Okay, so the final one, which I think is just kind of fun to talk about, this is where I can be a little bit more free-flowing with the ideas. It's not so clear, that's the point. People will ask if they think it's better to start in the countryside or if you were to start in a city, if that would be better to do. And the vast majority of people are going to want to live in a city, and for them that's immediately better. So I don't actually see one is better than the other unless you have a very, very specific thing that you're going to do. It's more to relax your mindset when you come, to consider that usually once you go somewhere and you've spent some time, unless you're just a miserable fuck, that you'll learn to appreciate some element of that. And it's most surrounding that you become engaged with wherever you are. So if you're in the countryside and you never go out your door, well, then that will be the world to you. It's just this little place where you're in these four walls, very small because it's a starting apartment, and you feel that the countryside is shite. But really, if you just got out that door, if you went to the local parks, if you started taking Japanese lessons, if you kind of got involved however you could, if there's like extra events at your school that you've been invited to, that you get involved with that, the people that you meet, the places that you find will be incredible. And I think there is some special value to embracing the off the beaten path kind of stuff, because you will as well encounter things that no one else ever has. Tons of people have experienced Shibuya, but how many people have experienced the countryside of Fukui or Gifu or something like that? You just don't know. And there are incredible people all around this world, and if we allow ourselves the possibility that we might enjoy something that we didn't expect to, we give ourselves that much more likelihood that we're going to run into people like that. So I encourage people, basically, whether it's the city or the countryside, don't think of one so much as better than the other. You could argue based on a certain analytic which you thought that was, but more focus on embracing the unknown. Run towards the anxiety, not away from it. Very, very fond of saying that. And you'll have a great time. You'll imagine, wow, I can't now that a year has passed, that someone would have said I started in Osaka or started in Tokyo. I'd never have wanted that, because then I never would have met so-and-so. Do a little like name drop here. When you think of things forming, let's just put it in the context of YouTube. Somebody like Chris from abroad in Japan, his like great friend that he's met, I believe when he started out, that was like not in some major significant town, but I get the sense that that's one of the most meaningful relationships in his entire life. It certainly seems to be, with the sort of honor he pays him and making like documentaries about him and stuff. So that is what I encourage in terms of, should I go to the countryside or should I go to the city? Quick one, to the point. This is number 1. I'm going to keep doing these. Contact me. I'll have already put it on the screen at this point. Contact at DaveTrippinJapan.com if you want to get a hold of me to have some questions answered. Perhaps you will end up in the next episode of Never Ask Me These Questions Again about teaching in Japan. But now that we've lit this fire once more and the cycle continues, I'm happy to go through them again. That's the whole point, is that a lot of the people I would have spoke to, of course, that's a renewing group of people, so I don't mind. Get a hold of me at that contact. I've said it in my podcast, but I wanted to make this invitation as well, that if you are someone who enjoys what I'm making and you have perhaps just interesting thoughts, or you have an interesting career or things that you've been through, it would be really cool to have you on to the podcast. So same contact, write me there, and if you want to come on, we'll have a conversation. I think that's a lot of fun. We got to have fun. My goal here is to be creative, to be informative, to have fun, to do all of these things. So that would be very good as well. If you don't already, if you consider supporting me on Patreon, that would be amazing. I've got that going on there. I got the Instagram that would have flashed down below. That's all for this video. Peace.